Hello, everyone. This is Nick from When Prog and Power Unite. I'm on the line with the man behind the music of Oceans of Night, Mr. Scott Mosher. Welcome.
Howdy.
For those who don't know, Scott has been writing and distributing his own music since 1996 and more recently formed Oceans of Night, which has produced 2 albums. Scott, where do you get the inspiration to keep on chugging in a struggling music industry?
Well, to be honest with you, it's got to be something that I'm really invested in. I've been a musician now for, over 20 years. I've been recording my music, since the early 90s, back in the days of cassettes, if we all can remember those fine pieces of technological wonder. And basically, since I'm the musical mastermind of Oceans of Night, it pretty much gives me as much creative and musical freedom as I need, since basically I write all the songs and, arrange, compose, and perform them, record them, and then, I work with Scott, the vocalist, Scott Oliva, and we pretty much go back and forth. I mean, he handles all the vocals, obviously, and most of the melodies, and we just kind of work it out, send stuff back and forth like a lot of bands do. But, for the most part, it's really just, the music itself is just, a creative vision that I have that just kind of honestly just comes out of me. I have a lot of creative freedom since, I'm pretty much handling everything myself. So the only limitations really are where I feel the songs need to go. If some of them are long or short, I have pretty much an idea in my head when I'm writing the song if it feels like it's going to be a short song or a long song. But I guess really to cut to the chase and answer your question is the inspiration really comes from inside.
Now you play keyboards, you play guitar, and obviously you are a songwriter. The people that you grew up and that inspire and kind of you take your inspiration from for your music, do you mainly look to guitarists, keyboardists, songwriters? Do you come from a particular background?
Really, it's all about songs to me. I mean, when I was earlier, I'm actually a guitar player first and foremost, but as the years went by and I've had less time to devote to guitar playing, I've kind of expanded into more of, concentrating on song composition and arrangements. So, the guitar parts are almost, I wouldn't say they're secondary, but the actual main song structure is the most important part. So the inspiration, comes from a wide variety of, of music, since I kind of listen to a lot of different things. So basically my music is kind of progressive rock mixed with, heavy metal and a large heaping dose of ambient textures and atmosphere. And I kind of throw them in a musical blender, put it on 180 and then, pour it out and see what sticks, basically.
Yeah. Now, that being said, is there any guys that you can name that maybe aren't the greatest keyboardists, maybe aren't the best guitarists, but who you really look up to as a songwriter?
I don't really base what I like, upon musical ability. I mean, there's great guys out there who are amazing, technical virtuosos, and you'd also have, great emotional impact, and, vice versa. There's also people who influence me from a more of an emotional and, phrasing technique may not be there. So, really for me, it matters more if their styles speak to me. So I guess as far as keyboard players that influenced me, Kitaro, a lot of New Age guys. So that would be like Kitaro, the Japanese New Age musician. Tangerine Dream, David Arkenstone, and a bunch of the guys on the Hearts of Space label, which is a big New Age label that does a lot of ambient music. And as far as guitar players go, since that's my main instrument, and really the main thing I compose on when it comes to guitar solos and everything, obviously I'm composing guitar solos on a guitar. But my main guitar influences are George Lynch, Tony McAlpine, which can't really hear in my music, Neil Schon from Journey, Alex Lifeson from Rush, Richie Blackmore, Eddie Van Halen. Again, you really don't hear too much, although the influence is there. Buck Dahmer from Blue Oyster Cult, and Steve Rothery from Merle. And so, it's kind of a hodgepodge of, guitar players from a variety of different areas of music, and the Edge from U2, of course.
Yeah.
He's a big influence as well.
Now, I think a lot of people, especially that listen to my show, are kind of more familiar with the progressive and the heavy metal elements, but I think it's a lot trickier to kind of nail down the ambient side of things. What would you say are some of the key ideas or ways that you achieve the ambience in the more driven music that you do?
Well, for me, it's it's enough. The ambient stuff, the atmospheric stuff, really is it's kind of an embellishing element. There's sections that I like to where I break things down and let the song sections breathe more. It's a lot of the songwriting for me is about dynamics, where we have hard, heavy sections, progressive parts, and then they break down into like a soft part or a more atmospheric part. So to me, the ambience and the atmospheric, the keyboard stuff is really just another embellishing factor that kind of builds upon the music that's already there, which is the drums, the bass, the guitars. It's really, it's an important element, and it's sometimes a very distinct element, but it's a lot of it comes down to the dynamic range in there, going from soft to heavy and fast to slow. And a lot of interplay in there, and that's part of the songwriting and arrangement compositional area that I like to try and focus on is the dynamics and the song structure and the interplay between the two.
Okay. Now, notice the opening track on the last album, Domain, is the first one of the last, including Domain, of the last three albums. It's the only really long track that you've done. Is it something?
It's pretty long.
Yeah. Is it something that you kind of knew right from the beginning was going to be really long, or did it start shorter and just keep growing and growing and growing on you?
That's actually a pretty good question, because that was actually the first song I wrote when I was writing songs for the CD. I actually wrote 2.5 CDs worth of music over the course of almost a year, and that was actually the first one I wrote. And I had a feeling it was going to be a long song, and I had a feeling it might even be the title track. I wasn't sure, but when I wrote it, it was actually even longer than it is now. It's probably close to 25 minutes. So once I write the song, then the next part for me is, how can I, cut it down? Does it need to be cut down, or even sometimes does it need to be expanded? And in this case, the song felt like a song within a song, or kind of like a very cinematic, movie-driven feel to it. Mm-hmm. So I kind of shaved down about, I'd say, 8 minutes off the total length. And, when I listened back, it felt like that was a pretty comfortable length for that song. I knew it was going to be long because it goes to these movements, and each movement is kind of pretty lengthy in spots. But it's broken down into movements, and I kind of suspected when I hit this one point, I got it down to about a nice, stealthy 17 minutes. That kind of felt about right.
Mm-hmm. Somewhere out there listening eventually to this is a guy going, what, he had 25 minutes and he cuts it down and he calls that prog?
Yeah, well, prog to me is, I kind of, prog to me is more like it's an evolution of music. It's combining, elements of different kinds of music, different elements of music. It's not really so much a genre to me as it is just the approach that you're taking to music. It doesn't have to be crazy time signatures and, super virtuosic musical abilities. It's more like the approach that a musician takes to their songwriting, or the band takes to their songwriting. That to me is more of the progressive approach I'm going for. Taking a standard song, conventional song structure, and throwing in a ton of ear. Doing chorus, verse, pre-chorus, and or messing around things and kind of throwing people for a loop. And to me, that's something I'd rather do in spots, is really just change things up where necessary and see how things go from that approach. To me, that's the way I treat my progressive music, is more of from a songwriting compositional point of view.
Okay. Yeah, there's always been a long debate on prog versus progressive versus, what exactly is it, and that's a very nice, insightful answer on your end of things. Now,
it's definitely a long and intriguing conversation with many people.
yes, very much so. Now, you've been, like I say, you've been doing your own music for a long time, but not only that, you've been promoting it pretty much. What would you find more difficult, actually making music or promoting it and trying to get it out there?
That's a pretty good question, and I've gotten into many discussions about that because basically, since I'm functioning as a DIY, do-it-yourself, independent, self-financed musician, I basically have to handle everything from songwriting to the recording and the marketing, all that kind of stuff, distribution, and it is pretty daunting. I mean, I'm the first to admit that I'm not the world's greatest salesperson. My self-promotional skills are probably lacking compared to a lot of other folks out there. And basically, since we're kind of a two-man group here, the responsibility falls upon me ultimately to kind of get my music out there, market it as best I can, and really promote it. So it's definitely tough. I mean, the internet's a great thing. Without it, I probably would be doomed. But again, I'm really doing it because I enjoy it first and foremost, and that other people do and even want to hear it is kind of like icing on the cake for me. I mean, it's a great thing, and I definitely appreciate the people that do support me and enjoy it. I think it's something that really kicks me in the gut when I get compliments on it, or even just constructive criticism. But I definitely I'm trying to get better with the self-promotional end of things. That's definitely a tough one. There's so many people out there, promoting their music, their bands, and so I don't like to use the word competition, but the market is saturated, and it's an uphill battle. But if you really want to get stuff out there and promote your music, you just have to really stay the course, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the things I've always said. I think to people when they say the internet's great because anyone can put their music out there. The flip side is anyone can put their music out there.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, without question.
Now, on that same subject, one of the things I want to ask you here, because I figure you would have a unique perspective on this, since Oceans of Night doesn't tour, and one of the things I've heard over the years from people who download mostly, piracy and whatnot, is that, they'll see the band on tour and support them that way, and, there's
right.
a discussion to be had whether that's a good idea or not. But for a band like you, who, you and Scott don't tour, what's your take on the whole piracy thing?
Well, ultimately, you can't argue with it. It's hard to fight the march of time and technology, and that's really going to dictate where things go. I mean, of course, I'm an artist, literally, because I'm a graphic artist as well. So I've seen, many things come down in the last 10 years, and things have really changed in the last 5. I mean, we all know what the music industry's like now, and it's just the way it is. It's digital over analog, and that's not to say there's room for any other thing or any other technologies, but that's just the way it is. So basically, I mean, I put my music out there for free, actually. I mean, pretty much everything I release is out there, is up there on iTunes. Well, it's not for free on iTunes, but I have lower quality versions all available for free on my website. 128 BPS. So it's still pretty decent quality. You can buy the CDs if you want the liner notes and the story behind the music and all that fancy fun stuff, which I think is part of the great tangible experience of owning a CD. But if you just want to download the music, I put it out there for free. I mean, if it's going to serve as an introduction for people to get other things, that's great too. But if they just want to take the music and go home and listen to it that way, that's fine as well. There's only so much control we can really have at some point.
Okay. Now, we had talked before about your vocalist in Oceans of Night, Scott Oliva. He lives all the way across the country from you. How did you guys first get together or talk or meet and start doing music together?
Yes, he does live over there, and I can't get him to move out here, so he's in big trouble. No, actually, we're actually old friends. We've known each other for quite a long time. I guess probably going on 20 years now. So we've always traveled in similar music circles. I mean, he's been doing music for at least 20 some odd years now. So he's well rounded and well known in the especially in the New York music circles, from Inner Strength, Wind Wraith, Driven, a whole bunch of other bands, and he's always pretty busy with musical projects here and there. So bringing him on board was there was really the first reason was because the first vocalist I was working with my friend Todd, he, for him it wasn't something he was that passionate about, and he was busy with other things in life. So when I needed to get a new vocalist, I didn't really hesitate to call Scott because he's been a vocalist of renown for many years, and I actually thought it was like a no-brainer to get in touch. I wasn't sure he was going to be necessarily into the more experimental style of music I was doing, but actually it turned out he was really into doing something different than what he was used to doing, which was a lot of power metal and heavy, straightforward progressive metal, and it worked out great for both of us because he gets to challenge himself with some kinds of music that he enjoys, but he hasn't really worked a lot with in his past, and I get to work with an old friend and a world-class vocalist, of course, and we worked it out. We worked together really well. It's a lot of back and forth with the vocal stuff, but he serves the music really well with his voice. He's a lot of dynamic range, and his vibrato is great, and I think it just ups the emotional content quotient from what I'm trying to bring across with the music. And we also co-write the lyrics together, again along with the vocal melodies.
Well, actually brings me to one of my next questions, which is going to be, when it comes to the vocals, do you think that vocal melodies or lyrics trump one another, or do you think that they both have to be there essentially?
I prefer to have them go hand in hand. It's good. It's good when for me the lyrics, should reflect the music, and I think with Scott and I, we both agree on that. Where, it's hard to write a love song when the music's heavy, fast, and dark, unless you're Cannibal Corpse, and then it's probably not your typical love song. You probably wouldn't want to play it for little kids. But lyrics are pretty important. We tend to get a little bit more abstract and surreal with them, where it's not an obvious statement we're trying to make. I mean, sometimes you have to read into them a little bit more. I don't like to really give people a roadmap with what the meaning is.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer them just, it's supposed to be like music you just sit back to and listen to and forge your own opinions on. I think, a lot of musicians kind of feel the same way. But it should be part of the music experience as a whole, I think.
Okay. Now, we were talking before about how far he is away from you. Now, of course, with technology now, there's a lot of advances that make it easier, but do you think there's still some sort of gap, or with technology today, might he just as well be in the room with you?
No, I think many musicians have improved over the years, and there's one of the great things about technology is that, we don't have to be in the same room. We don't have to have band practice every week. We don't really even have to state any longer to collaborate and successfully as well. So, in our case, actually, it's out rather well because, we can all live our lives. You don't have to have this stress of band practice and having to get these songs done by a certain point. We can kind of work at a leisurely pace because we have, day jobs, we have other responsibilities, and, it's a love and a passion for us. So we can put more time and effort into it. We're not under the gun of a label, for, in this case, for better or worse. We can just, partake and get into it as we see fit, and when time permits. And it generally works out pretty well. I mean, that's the card hand we're dealt, so we really have to roll with it. We don't have a lot of choice. There's sometimes you gotta just play the hand you're dealt and go from there. Make it work, basically.
Mm-hmm. Now, on your website, it says that if you were to tell me or anyone else anything about the drummer that you used on Domain, you'd have to kill me. But it just so happened...
Yeah, I'm not a non-violent guy normally either.
I just hired SEAL Team 6 for protection, so tell me something about this guy.
I think I know some of those guys. Alan Smithy is kind of he's basically a musical enigma. I mean, he comes in, does his thing, and leaves. We don't really even get a chance to see him. I mean, I get this stuff pretty easily from him, and I just let him do his thing. Give him the songs, he lays it down, and then he's gone. So it's almost like working with the ghost, so to speak.
It's like a drum machine that you have to feed.
Yeah, he I don't think he would argue with that with that connotation there. I think he might actually agree with it. Okay. When I see him next time, I will actually ask him, but I'm pretty sure he would agree.
Very good. Now, if you could go back to the start of your musical career now and tell young Scott Mosher anything or give him some advice, what would it be?
Nick, do you have kids?
I do not, no.
Okay. Well, if you remember when you were a kid, if there's one thing you know about teenagers, you can't tell them anything, dude.
I do have a 17-year-old sister, so.
Okay, well, there you go. Does she like to listen?
Does she like what?
Does she like to listen to her parents?
No.
Or even her brother?
No.
Exactly. So if I went back in time and tried to tell myself something, I'd probably be like, I'm going to go and do the opposite thing, man. Forget you, older Scott. I don't want to talk to you right now. He would probably be doing the same thing to a much larger extreme, to be honest.
All right. Now, the last question I have for you. Now, Shadow Heart Mirror, the first Oceans of Night album, came out in 2009. Domain came out in 2011. Does this mean we're getting a new album next year?
Well, I can put it to you this way. Like I alluded to earlier, I had a lot of when I wrote the songs for the current CD over the last year, I had written seriously about 20 songs, which an Oceans of Night song length is close to 3 CDs worth of music. So we have a lot of songs we're actually working on. Some of them are semi-complete, some are in the stages of being worked on, and some of them have yet to be touched. But the music, for the most part, is all done. There'll be a couple surprises. As far as the style goes, we've pretty much established a sound and style that works and is something that I've been trying to bring across for a long time, and I'm comfortable with, and I think I'm finally there. So I think really at this point it's really just going to be a matter of, how do I say this? A matter of refining it, so to speak. And basically, we're just going to, we probably will have something out in 2000. I'm pretty sure it'll be next year. I'd say we have about close to half of the next CD done. Really, it's just a matter of vocals at this point. And then, we'll probably try and bang out a bunch of songs and see which ones are the strongest and go with those. And then jump into the other ones and maybe work on another CD after that. But for the most part now, it's really just finishing up what we have, refining the songs that we have done, and then getting vocal ideas and lyrically working on the next few songs and really just going from there. So I hope 2013, I don't know exactly when, but probably before the next Guns N' Roses album.
So before 2022.
Yes, if we don't do another CD before 2022, then I will retire to an island off the coast of England with big rocks and probably just start pounding on them with my head.
Very good. Well, I look forward to it, and I thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me, and I wish you the best of luck in that and all your future endeavors. Oh, Nick, I really appreciate you giving me the time to expound upon what we do a little bit, and of course the exposure and everything, especially for us, independent, self-financed, non-label so far bands. The exposure is just a great thing, and I can't say enough, and thanks enough either, and except for maybe checks in the mail. It would be the first. It would be the first time, but hopefully not the last time.